Well, good afternoon, and thank you all for coming here. Normally, we wouldn't have a press conference on something like this, but we feel it's so important for our community to let them know about these mail thefts that have been occurring. And it seems like it was just yesterday, but it was exactly about a month ago that Chief Deputy Hester shared the increase of mail thefts we were having across our county. And he warned that places, communities where seniors live were most susceptible. The reason being is they don't do a lot of online banking. They put the check in the mailbox and then they raise the red flag, which is a beacon for thieves to show up and steal those checks. And lo and behold, exactly to the day a month later, we make 2 arrests, a couple who were doing exactly that. Inside their vehicle after the arrest were 11 different checks from 11 different mailboxes. And Chief Deputy Hester will explain the arrest, what we found. But today's message is, if you do not do online banking, do not put that red flag up, sending that beacon to thieves. Here's my mail, here's my checks. Go ahead and take a little extra time, drive your mail to the post office with the checks and do it that way. And I think that would be the safest method of paying your bills. These 2 people, we don't know how long they've been doing this, but we have 11 victims. We think we are going to tie them to more victims. And you could see, and it was important for us to show the appearance change from their driver's license until the time of their arrest. And we could presume that's because of their drug use, which seems to be a nexus to a lot of thieves. And we just wanted to share this information with our community. And with that, Chief Deputy Hester, if you explain the suspects, the vehicle description, as well as their charges, and we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you, Sheriff, and good afternoon, everyone. I just want to reiterate what the Sheriff just said. A month ago, we actually did, a story. Actually, WPTV did a story. I think TC Palm did a story on the mail thefts. And in that story, I provided some of the tips of things not to do. And interestingly, and as you'll hear when I read the narrative, these victims in this case, they did one of the things that we said, hey, watch out, don't do this. But the great thing is by getting the word out and by you guys being here and putting the word out, somebody called. Somebody recognized what was going on, and somebody actually called and got our deputies to the scene. So it's always a success when we get your help, and that's the other thing that we want you guys today is to let's get the word out. Let's make people aware of what's going on in our community, and that's how we can catch these individuals that are committing these crimes. So I'll go over the details of the arrest, and then we'll take any questions that you guys might have. So on Tuesday morning, witnesses called 911 after they observed a silver sedan that stopped in front of several residents inside Country Club, Spanish Lakes Country Club, which is up off the feeder route in US 1. The vehicle was driving slow in front of many of the residents with a white male subject that was walking in front of the vehicle. They were stopping at mailboxes that had flags up, and an alert citizen in the community called 911. A few minutes later, there was a couple of other 911 calls that came in to dispatch, basically stating that this neighbor had gone and contacted their neighbors and said, hey, check your mailboxes. And then several of those people within the community realized their flag was still up, but their mail was gone that was in there. Our deputies then arrived in the area and started to look for the vehicle. At first, they could not locate the vehicle, but as they were speaking to other witnesses, they heard what sounded like an argument taking place just down the road from where they were at. They go down to that location, and lo and behold, they see the vehicle and the 2 suspects that match the description that had been given to them. During their investigation, or as they conducted an investigation there where the vehicle was parked, they observed several pieces of mail that had been thrown in a garbage can, and then some other items that appeared to not belong to the suspects there at that location as well. After their investigation and lengthy interviews, both of the subjects were arrested. They were brought back here to the sheriff's office for questioning and then subsequently charged. Both, and let me just try to give you a little bit of information about them. They were 33-year-old Cheryl Lynn Snyder of Vero Beach and 31-year-old Emmett Chamberlain Dacey of Fort Pierce. Both Snyder and Dacey have been booked into the St. Lucie County Jail. Snyder's being held on a $72,750 bond, and Dacey's being held on a $10,750 bond. You're going to ask me why Snyder's bond is so much more, but Snyder had also, you guys I think will have access to the arrest affidavits and the charges as well, but Snyder was found in possession of a trafficking amount of fentanyl, drug paraphernalia, as well as some other drugs, I believe, as well as she attempted to give a false name to law enforcement, and it took quite some time for detectives to figure out who she really was.
And in fact, she had an outstanding warrant also.
That's correct. She was wanted out of Martin County on 2 charges as well. Our detectives continue to investigate whether or not these suspects were involved in the reported mail thefts that occurred earlier this year. They are suspects in 2 of those cases, we know for a fact. Given the nature of this case, we believe that there may be additional victims, and we encourage anyone with information potentially regarding mail theft or door cam videos or anything that they might have that could tie these 2 suspects to any other cases, to please contact us. If you believe that you may have been a victim of mail theft, please notify the sheriff's office. Don't just let it go unreported. And you can do that by contacting our detectives at 772-462-3230, or you can call Treasure Coast Crime Stoppers at 1-800-273-TIPS as always, and there's a potential reward if information you provide leads to an arrest or additional charges as well. So with that, if I back up real quick and just talk about what we said on the interview before we go into questions, there were a couple of tips that we gave out, and I want to go over those tips again today to everyone that's watching, and just things that you can do to protect yourself against mail theft. And as I said in the story that was done a month ago, I was a victim of mail theft about a year ago. And so immediately, and I live in a community, very small community, but the same thing happened, and they tried to get credit cards in my name. Fortunately, I was contacted because I have a credit lock, which is one of the recommendations. Always lock your credit, because you'll get notified if someone tries to obtain a credit card or do something in your name. But a couple of those tips that we tell people is choose paperless billing, as the sheriff said. Pay your bills online. Use your bank's paperless billing service. Never send cash through the mail. Always use money wiring services or apps like your Venmos and Zelles to send cash. Use a secure mail center for sensitive mail. Take it to the post office if you have to do that, but don't put it in your mailbox. Put a hold on your mail and your deliveries when you're out of town. There's also you can sign up for what's called informed delivery through the U.S. Postal Service. That was one of the first things I did when I was a victim of this. They send me an email daily with pictures of all the mail that I'm supposed to receive in my mailbox, and that comes in an email to me, so I can look and I can see if that stuff's there. The other thing you can do is regularly review your bank and credit card statements. And then there's also the opportunity that you can buy mailboxes that are locking mailboxes. It allows the postal carrier to put mail in through a slot, but someone can't just open your mailbox and take that out. And I noticed on my street, many of the people that live on my street put the locking mailboxes up after that incident occurred as well. So those are tips that we can tell you. But if you put that red flag up, that red flag's red for a reason. Not just to inform that driver that comes through, but that's for any criminal that's looking to take advantage or commit fraud. That's a sign, hey, something's in here that might be valuable to somebody. So with that, and then as always, if you see something or you see someone that's suspicious, call. We'll have deputies on scene as quick as we can, but call right away if you see something suspicious in your neighborhood or community or outside your residence as well. So with that, we'll turn it over for any questions.
What's the relationship between these two? Are they coupled? Are they married?
I'm going to be slow to answer that because I would just tell you that
Go ahead and say it.
yeah, they're a couple. They're a couple of thieves in our community is what they are. We don't know the relationship. They appeared to be a couple, but we don't know for sure.
So how much money do you think was stolen in the thefts of the mail? Were they looking for checks, and how much money did they take?
Yeah, that was all. It was all checks that we recovered. I don't know the total amount of the checks. There wasn't any substantial values. I think the total of the checks was less than $2,000 or $3,000.
Would you say this is something that they may have been doing in the past and were just not caught, or is it something that they may have just started doing and you caught them at the right time?
Yeah, I don't think this was their first time. I mean, just given the fact he was walking beside the car, she was driving down the community, that's a little more thought out than just pulling up the mailbox and flipping it open, hopping out of the car. And again, I think the sheriff mentioned that a lot of times we see in our community that crimes like these are fueled by, drugs and drug addictions. And that's evident in the fact that one of these individuals had trafficking amounts of fentanyl as well as syringes on them. And, with the climate, not to digress too far, but with the climate of, our economy and inflation, gas prices and grocery prices, one of the things that we fully expect to see are more thefts. And, that's a trend that follows our history. So anytime we see rising gas prices, fuel thefts and things like that rise, so I think criminals will take any opportunity they can.
Were all of the owners of the checks seniors, as you mentioned? Were most of them older people?
I think so. I think most of them were. Most of them, I think several of them lived in that community that we recovered. There might have been a couple that were from out of that community, but yes.
And you caught them, also you intercepted before these checks could be cashed. So these folks just had to go write another check, correct? No one was out any money.
Right. No one was out any money. And we don't know if their intent was to cash them, wash them, alter them, steal bank account. I mean, you got to figure checks have routing numbers and checking account numbers, and criminals can do a lot with that information these days.
Are you also in touch with agencies to the south of, I think Boca Raton was reporting mail thefts? Are you comparing notes to see if anyone up here was tied to crimes even as far as southern Palm Beach County? So
we'll put this information out through our analysts, and just as we receive that information in from all of our surrounding partners and our state fusion centers, we'll put that information back out as well with pictures of the car and what we caught them with. We don't have any hard evidence that ties them outside of our area right now, and they're both local people, so no reason to believe they were venturing too far out, but it could be.
Do they have real jobs?
No.
They do not?
No.
So they make a career out of stealing from other people?
I don't know what their career's been in the past, but both have extensive criminal histories, and both have last known residents here in Fort Pierce and Vero Beach areas.
Just so I'm absolutely clear about this, they would look for mailboxes where the red flag is up, which means somebody has put mail in there that they want to send someone to someone?
Correct.
So they know that there's something in there that they would want to take.
That's correct.
And you touched on this a second ago. The woman was driving and the guy was walking next to the car, opening mailboxes. Can you tell us how they did this?
So these are, in the community that they were in, it's just, if you've been into one of the Spanish Lakes, it's a senior community. And the houses are very close together. The mailboxes are very close together. And so, if you turn down the street and you see 5 red flags up, he just walks from mailbox to mailbox with the red flags, opening them up. Now, the interesting thing to go with your question is they were actually approached by one of the witnesses. And a gentleman asked them, what are you guys doing? And they said they were looking for a specific street or a location, and he offered to help them, find that location, but they just kept going.
And so they do this in the middle of the night when nobody was around when they were opening mailboxes, or in broad daylight?
No, this is broad daylight.
Broad daylight.
Are you currently investigating to see if maybe they have any other accomplices that may be involved in this, just because they're behind bars, maybe their friends or whatnot could be a part of the scheme?
Sure. So our detectives they're following up, numerous leads with regard to this or any other information that comes in. So it doesn't just stop with their arrest. So the information obtained from them was limited. So we'll continue to follow up. They're known, who they hang out with and so forth.
I mean, unfortunately, thefts happen year-round. Would you say that you're seeing more of a trend maybe as summer is peaking and it's summertime, you might see more of these mail thefts coming around, or would you say it's an anomaly of like what you normally seeing, anomaly?
And the funny thing is we didn't have any, if I remember. We had none all the way up until April. And then in April we had 2, and in May I think we had 5. And then I've noticed a few more starting to occur in June. I don't know the exact number we've had in June. And then, we catch these 2. So I'm not so sure I would say it's seasonal. I think it's just, again, as I said before, when economic times get tougher, people turn to more, they turn to more opportunities with regard to crime.
And were these all in like utility type envelopes? Like were the exteriors of the envelopes obvious that there would be like a bill inside, or were these just standard yellow or just standard white envelopes?
Yeah, I don't know what the envelope. I didn't look at the envelopes, but I will tell
You have
you.
a picture of it,
Oh.
Tanya? I think she's going to share a picture of all the evidence.
Yeah, but I don't think they're just. I do know that. I can tell you this: they're not discretionary on what they take. If the red flag's up, they're grabbing everything in there. When they get back to wherever they're going to go through it, they're going to discard what's no good to them, and they're going to keep what they feel like they could steal an identity or whatever they can do with.
Are these federal charges too?
No, that's a good question. So, with regard to mail theft, it is not a federal offense unless it occurs between the time it leaves where it's going and gets to. So, once the mail carriers get involved and the time it gets to your mailbox. If it's taken out of a mailbox, it's not a federal crime.
What would you say it means to get these 2 off the street?
Well, I think it means a lot to our community that, hey, look, we tied these 2. We know we've tied them back to 2 that we talked about a month ago. So that tells me they may be tied to the other ones that have occurred. Are they the only ones out there? I don't know, but I think it's great. It reiterates the information we've provided to the community on, hey, don't do these things or take these safety tips. And it also, for us, it lets the community know that we're working hard. Mail theft may not be a big deal to some people. Identity theft, it happens all the time, right? But we're going to take all crimes seriously, and we're going to do our best that we can do to catch these criminals in the act. We're not just talking about it. We're actually putting our money where our mouth is.
Sorry if you already answered this, but have the checks been returned back to, if they haven't been opened, or I don't know if they have been?
No, they'll be put into evidence. Those are evidence at this point, and then the owners can take their own steps to cancel or void that check. But at least they're not in bad people's hands.
Are these felonies?
So the felonies that were involved here, and I'm looking at the captain back there. The mail thefts themselves weren't, but I think a certain number of those will culminate into a potential felony charge, as well as some of the other charges that I think there's a charge, I don't have the affidavits in front of me, but where it's a fraud where you attempt to obtain someone's identity and you have so many people, like if it's 5 or more, it becomes a felony. So there was some felony charges in there. But if you just, one mail theft might not be a felony charge.
Chief, also the burglary to autos from the night before with the handicap placard.
Oh, that's right. And we didn't speak to that, but they were found to be in possession of a handicap placard that was taken out of a car the night before and then reported the next day. And so that's a burglary to a vehicle, and they were tied back to that case as well.
So they broke into cars too?
That's correct.
They broke in or just opened cars that were not locked?
Well, and I don't know if that one was locked or not.
Most of them are unlocked.
And you know, that's another, not to get off topic, but that's another huge issue that we're having is people not locking their cars. And we would love for people to, you know, at dark, remember, the first thing we want you to remember is go out and make sure your car is locked. Because most of the, you know, in the southern end of our county right now, the second highest crime we're having is vehicle burglaries, and it's unlocked cars.
Can you just give us your general reaction to making these 2 arrests?
Well, I think it's a great job by our deputies and detectives. It's a great job by our citizens in our community to look out for each other. And it makes me happy. It makes me happy that people are paying attention to what we're telling them, and they're actually looking out for each other, and they're calling and getting us on scene to do our job. So it's really a proof that the process works, the tips work, the things that, you know, we're asking people to do, that it works.
And somebody who thought they saw a suspicious vehicle or suspicious people called 911, and that's what brought you out there?
Yeah, this vehicle driving slow down the street, a guy walking beside it.
And now we put the picture of the car up there because people might have seen that car and didn't put 2 and 2 together. Now, after hearing this story, this story, they're going to say, hey, that car was in my neighborhood last week. I didn't know what they were doing. So that's why we want to share all this information with your viewers.
Can you also just quickly talk, Sheriff, about the fact that their appearance is different and what you think of that and why that may be the case?
A couple of comments that I want to expand on. You know, when someone puts a check in the mailbox, they think it's just a check. It's for $5 for maybe the garbage bill, which is much higher by now. But it's a $5 check to the garbage man. But we know that it's not the amount that matters. It's that information on the check, as the chief deputy explained. It's their name, their address, the routing number. And then prolific mail thieves, what they do is they have a washing system in their vehicle that they then wash the amount off the check, and they change it to $550 instead of $5. And then that $5 check becomes not only a treasure chest of identity theft, but the amount increases dramatically. And it was important for us to share their pictures up there from their driver's license, which they appear to be 2 normal people, and then their booking photo. Over time, I'm presuming that because of their drug use, their total appearance have changed. And some people in the community might have seen them looking as a top picture, and more recently seen them looking more like the bottom picture. So that's why it was important for us to share that with our viewers.
What did they say when you got them?
I wasn't there for that, but
Their statements were limited. You know, once they realized the gig was up, they quit talking. But we got enough based on the evidence that was, you know, we observed, plus the statements they did make. I can tell you their stories didn't match at all. And in fact, they were horrible. All right.
The one last thing, I think it maybe spelled out in the arrest report, but you found stolen checks in their car and drugs?
So, yes, there were some checks in the vehicle. The drugs were, I believe, in the female's purse, and then there was a handicap placard in the car as well.
So they did not confess, right?
Limited. Let's put it that way. There was some confession, just not. Let's just say they didn't take full ownership, and a lot of blaming each other.
to your viewers, don't put the red flag up. Run the check in the mail to the post office. All right, thanks.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.